Hi team, AcesUp here for PokerNerve.com. A couple of hands to review. This one's submitted through our Facebook group. If you're not a member, make sure you join. And I will be doing a Guess the Hand coming right up after this with a $25 prize up for grabs for the person who can guess the mystery hand. But first of all, we see here we have a limp UTG. And Mr. Donk to you, our hero here, has isolated around 3.5x. Looks pretty good. A call here. Looks pretty strong, this call, doesn't it? Still pretty early position, lots of players behind. Called the 2-bet isolation. And not too surprisingly, the original limper does call. So we go to the flop 3-way. Not the best flop. The ace is there. Wouldn't you know it? We see a check. Our hero checks here. I think that's fine. Not too much point to betting. We could get some value from maybe some weaker pairs and some flush draws. But, you know, I think check calling is probably the standard play here. And that is what our hero does. Although, that is a very small bet, isn't it, on the flop? I still think, though, even though they bet so tiny, it is tempting to raise. But we're not really probably going to get called by that many worse hands. I mean, if they are betting something like 6s or 8s for information, that small bet, they're probably just going to fold to a raise anyway. Occasionally, I do see this with a hand like, you know, pocket 5s here, potentially. We did start this hand pretty deep, so maybe our opponent does call with some pocket pairs like that. That's definitely not really what I would expect, though. I'd expect to see some flush draws when they bet small like this. They don't mind putting a little bit of extra money in the pot, or some sort of weak pairs betting for information. Maybe get a fold from one of the opponents, which they do. The original limper does fold, so our hero just calls here. I think that's okay. And there is the Miracle Queen, although it does bring the flush. So we go ahead and check, which I think is fine. See our hero bets kind of bigger now, doesn't it? So if they did bet the flop with a smallish pair like 6s, or maybe even if they're loose with 7-8 suited for, you know, information or something like that, I don't think this is a line that you see very often where you see small bet and then they decide to turn a weakish hand into a bluff and go, here we see half pot. So it feels a little bit more like they actually do have a made hand now, possibly a flush, or maybe, you know, the flop set, or maybe they were just betting an ace and they just don't know how to bet properly. Could be a recreational player. I don't know anything about this villain here, but our hero does check call, which seems to be fine. And we fill up on the river. That's beautiful. Go ahead and check it over to the player who's bet each street now, and they do fire again around half pot. So it looks to me like they would have a flush. Maybe they had a huge draw on the flop, like a, you know, ace 10 of clubs or something like that. So they just wanted to bet small to lure people into the pot. Could have been their thinking. I'm trying to, you know, think what this player might be thinking when they bet that size, because I must admit it's a size that I very rarely bet the minimum on the flop. But maybe it's a hand like that, or a set like we said. But, I mean, 5s does beat us. That would be quads. That would be pretty unlucky. That's only one combination. There's 3 sets of 7s. There's all the flush draws, like, you know, all the ace-x flush draws. Some king-jack, king-10, maybe 10-jack suited, 9-10 suited, depending on how loose they are, calling the 2-bet pre-flop. So there's certainly a lot of hands that we can beat, and we obviously want to raise. The question is how much? I tend to think that we should probably shove, because this opponent has indicated that they're probably a recreational player, and therefore they might hero call a little bit wider than they should, or they might just have a strong hand like, you know, the flush, or maybe 7s, pocket 7s or something like that. So I would just shove here. Let's see what our hero does. They go ahead. They raise pretty large though, almost 3x. So, you know, it's only really the size of the pot though. And we are deep, so it is a bit greedy to try and get the remaining 163,000 that our opponent has behind in their stack remaining, because we did start this hand very deep. But I think I would just go for it. I think I would just shove. It's also interesting that we've just check called. So in our opponent's eyes, it might look a little bit weird, especially if our opponent has an ace. They might be like, well, I have an ace and they've only been check calling. What the hell do they have? Maybe they might think it's some sort of crazy desperation bluff or some weird move and call a little bit light. So we have that advantage of looking like we're capped by just check calling and not showing a lot of strength each street, plus the fact that our opponent appears to be a recreational player. When you combine those 2 points, I think I want to just go for the lot here and jam. But yeah, certainly not too bad a size, pretty big. And we did get some nice value there from the King Jack of clubs. Okay, well played, sir. Let's move on to the next hand now. Thanks to Mr. Donk2U for submitting that hand through the Facebook group. Anyone at any time can send hands through and have them reviewed through the Facebook group. So make sure you take advantage of that. I'm looking forward to reviewing some interesting hands. I am heading off to Macau for the Asian Poker Championship, the AcesUp. Playing a bunch of events, including the main, which is a 13K buy-in, so pretty excited for that. So I will be away for a couple of weeks, team, but definitely as soon as I get back, I want to jump into reviewing some hands. So make sure if you haven't already, sign up to the Facebook group. And if you are in the group, please submit hands. Love to see them. And this hand here is going to give you the chance to win $25. Obviously a hand that I played, whole cards hidden. And we see it's going to be blind versus blind, which is always kind of tricky. But let's see how we go here. So a 3x raise. We're not super deep. Just have a quick look here. How deep did we start the hand? So there was 500 in there. So about M20. Our opponent's got about 10K. So 3x raise. And C-bet on the Queen 7-2 two-tone flop. Our opponent calls. 9 on the turn doesn't change too much, although it does bring a few, maybe 10 jack and maybe a few floats that our opponent could have. I guess could pick up some draws. Maybe if they had like a king jack or king 10 or something like that. I bet again. It was just over half pot. Our opponent is hanging on, and there it is, the ace on the river. I think you have seen this before. Not too surprising here. SPR 1 on the river. The ace hits. Boom. There it is. Fire it all in there. Put our opponent to the test. Sail all the chips in the middle. All you can eat. And our opponent has to call off their remaining 6,700 if they think they're good. But what are we holding? Do we have it? Do we just have a hand like sevens? Do we have ace queen? Or are we bluffing with a hand like 5-6 suited? I will be giving away some clues in the Facebook group. So make sure you check those out and give yourself the best chance you can to get that $25 that's up for grab for the first person to correctly guess my 2 hole cards. Clues will be given away, so take advantage of those. And thanks for tuning in for this video. I'm off to Macau now. This has been AcesUp for PokerNerve. I'll see you next time.